Good morning, everybody. Today is Wednesday, October 8th, 2014. And this says For the First Cup with Jules on UCY.TV. Good morning. How's everybody doing out there? Yes, I'm back. I'm back in the driver's seat again. This is the point where someone says, and I'm happy to be here. Yes, I'm happy to be here. But honestly, 9 a.m., after all the crazy shit I went through this weekend, I think I would have rather been sleeping right about now. I could have used some more sleep, but hey, that's okay, because guess what? I did all kinds of research this weekend that we're going to talk about today. I don't know. We'll see how excited I get about it. I was really excited about it yesterday and the day before, but today I'm not excited about much of anything. I'm trying to get functional. I hope everyone's doing great for Wednesday. It is sunny and 53 beautiful degrees here today. It's actually a pretty nice fall day, but everything is changing in upstate New York now. So if you were planning on coming up here to see the trees, you better do it quick, because the Northeast is going to be dropping them here probably in the next couple of weeks. They'll be all gone. Speaking of storms, you know what? Let me bounce over quick. Did you guys see twice this week, I believe, two huge super, and I saw yesterday this one that's coming in. They're calling it a super typhoon, biggest we've seen for 2014, barreling down, getting ready to go bam into Japan again. The one that just went through, and I don't remember their names. Let's start with a V, Vas, something. The one that just went through a couple days ago swept 3 U.S. airmen out to the sea from Okinawa. One died, and I don't know if they found the other two. I know there was a search and rescue out. One, they actually recovered the body. Hold on. But, notice, and there really isn't a lot being announced about that either. Like, oh, look at these huge typhoons pummeling Japan. But, now I told you guys that we've been working on the Fukushima archives, right, and trying to get those online. Let me go out there. Fuku. And there have been a few really disturbing headlines from early on. And let's take a look and see if anybody has known us, because I figured, well, even though some of these headlines are from 2011, the fact that it was like from day number 2 or 3 of the disaster should make you go, holy crap. And let's see how much people care. People really don't care. 18 people radiation detected in South Carolina on March 29th, 2011. 18 people looked at it. Yeah. Radiation found in U.S. milk as of March 30th, 2011. Now I'm going to tell you something. I got my hands on the EPA database and was somehow allowed to run a 10-hour query and get all the data from 99 up until March or April of 2011. I now see any news put out some data that went from then until current. I'm not sure how to get my hands on those charts, so I'm going to have to play around maybe and see if I can at least pull some cursory information. But one of the things that was interesting is that we've had plutonium in our milk, not consistently and not all over the country, but in sporadic little pockets. We have had plutonium in our milk since at least 1999. Now, nice that they tell us that, huh? And I was never a milk drinker, thank God, but lots of kids were. And so, it kind of freaks me out when they go, oh, it's just minuscule amounts of radiation that won't do any harm. How would they know that? Well, they would know that because there's probably been radiation and stuff all along, and they just haven't said anything. Remember, today's show, actually, I should have had a picture of a guinea pig for my Before the First Cup posting. I did a coffee cup with some glowing blue DNA that almost looked like it had nanobots in it. But we're going to talk about being a guinea pig for the machine today. I think that's what the theme of today's show is. Because that's what it's all about. And we've always been the guinea pig, except we didn't know it. So that when, we find out that since 1999, at least from all these EPA numbers in an Excel spreadsheet, that we've had things like plutonium and cesium and beryllium and tritium and all these other radioisotopes in our air, drinking water, rainwater, and milk that they've been testing on a regular basis for many, many years, except nobody told us. Doesn't that kind of make you feel dirty? I know it makes me feel kind of dirty. In the 70s as a little kid, running around outside, I distinctly remember my friends always laughed at me because I could tell them that I always knew when it was going to rain because I could taste metal. Honestly, I could always taste metal before the rain. And, when I got older, I had always thought, oh, well, back in those days, we used leaded gasoline. Maybe it was the lead I could taste. But, after Fukushima, when we were all tasting metal here, I don't think that's what it was. And back in the 70s, they were still doing open air testing. Anyway, I'm not going to get on a radiation kick. Just wanted to say that there have been some pretty shocking headlines. Actually, there was one more. Let me find it. Like, this maybe was within the first week. Oh, March 28th, 2011, radiation was detected in 12 U.S. states. And here's a good one. Oh, hold the phone. You know what? Maybe we'll do this just to grease the machine. Hold on, I'm going to add myself. And then once I'm added to the call, it's easy to just turn the call on and off to play clips. So we might as well get that out of the way bright and early. All right, ding-a-ling-a-ling. My phone is ringing. There we go. All right, here. This is the one that I saved special for you guys. All right,
Turn to Japan now, where we have new developments this morning from that Fukushima power plant. Officials say the radiation level in contaminated water at the number 2 reactor is, get this, 10 million times higher than normal.
Now, guys, March 27th, 2011. Now, we know that there were 3 full melt-throughs going on there. Maybe 4, because I remember in the very beginning there were big arguments after the fact, like a year later, where they're like, oh, reactor number 4 spent fuel pool never burned up. Well, shit, I remember the news that it was on fire. How can you say it never burned up? Because I remember it. Well, lo and behold, the memory hole tells all, because yes, there's a video that I found yesterday that says number 4 was on fire. But he just said, as of March 27, 2011, reactor number 2, not reactor number 3 or 4 or 1, just 2. Non-inclusive. Yes, and remember, there's 5 and 6. And there was that Owagawa that was leaking radiation too, which there's a video clip here as well. And you never hear about that one. That appeared as a blip on the screen, and they shut that one up. There were all those other, what do you want to call them, facilities that were also leaking. Number 2 was at 10 million times normal radiation on March 27th, 2011. So here, I'll play the rest of this clip because the reason why I'm talking about this is this double typhoon. And this isn't the first time. Since 2011, we have had massive typhoon season like they've all been directed at Japan. You want to know why the ocean is so contaminated now? It's because I honestly, I almost believe that they're directing these because they are hoping that Fukushima Daiichi facility will wash into the ocean. I think that's what they're hoping. That's really all they can hope for. And, if it went into the ocean, they go, whoops, look at it. Well, it's at the bottom of the Pacific. Can't do anything about it. Oh, it got way worse. But hey, look on the bright side. The fuel will cool a lot faster and it's got water on it. TEPCO is like such a bunch of comedic clowns. I don't even know. The fact that we've allowed them, or anyone in the international community has allowed them to remain in charge, it's got to tell you right now that there's something wrong there. Those people shouldn't be in charge. They got the Yazuka or whatever they're called, Japan's organized crime unit is the one that's managing the whole project. They're the ones who are hiring all the homeless drunk people to come clean it up. It's just unbelievable. All right, I'm going to play the last of this.
Workers evacuated the building. Their work had to be put on hold. Also, officials are still trying to determine the relationship between contaminated water inside the plant and in seawater just offshore.
Oh,
to Japan.
They were trying to come up with the relationship between the contaminated water inside the plant and the contaminated water in the ocean. Well, didn't we find out that it's kind of like a sieve? And when you're sitting right on the water table at sea level on the shore of the ocean, that doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out. Oh, I probably shouldn't have started there because that stuff like really gets my blood pressure up. All right, so anyway, 10 million times safe levels as of March 27th, 2011. Oh, wait, let's see how many people thought that was an interesting tidbit. Hey, that one got 365 views, so that at least slapped someone in the face and got a little bit of attention. But now let's go back. We're going to look at this typhoon. So this typhoon, Super Typhoon Vong Fong. Vong Fong. The most powerful typhoon of 2014 tracks toward Japan. This was as of yesterday. Super Typhoon Vong Fong, currently tracking toward Japan, is being called the most powerful storm on Earth this year. Oh, we broke another record. Yay, geoengineers. It underwent rapid intensification last night and is now packing a maximum sustained winds of 155 miles an hour. The storm comes just after the deadly typhoon Fanphone. That's who it was. This was the one that started with the V, Vongphone. And that was Fanphone, made landfall in Japan earlier this week. Vongfong is forecast to take a similar path to that of Fanphone. Yes, they all do. They smash right into Fukushima. Bang, bang, bang. I swear to God, they are trying to knock it into the ocean. There's no other explanation. Okay, what are the chances? Typhoon after typhoon after typhoon after typhoon after typhoon, all track toward Japan and all smash right into Fukushima. I would say we should all be playing the lottery if that were the case. Although it may strengthen a bit over the next 24 hours now, that's good news because I saw that it could actually be over 200 mile an hour winds and that it was going to be up another one of those superstorms that had hit Category 5 status early on and then just continued to increase. Although it may strengthen a bit over the next 24 hours, the long-term track shows it weakening while it's moving north, yes, as it gets to cooler waters. And right now, you would think they're about in the same they're in the same month that we are as far as temperatures go. Their winter is when our winter is, so it's already getting chilly over there. That's why I thought typhoons were like hot water. And I know this forms, down in the southern Pacific, but not that far. And down usually near Mexico or whatever, and then they shoot up. But for a super typhoon this big in the first week of October, doesn't that seem kind of late to you? I don't know. I haven't done any research on that, but just kind of raises an eyebrow to me. Anyway, officials in Japan will be monitoring the typhoon closely over the next few days. Heavy rain, strong winds, and mudslides are possible as this storm tracks closer to the islands. So, hey, all kinds of great things to make sure Fukushima slides into the ocean. In the very beginning, people were saying that throw it in the ocean, throw it in the ocean. That would be a horrible, horrible thing. And within the first 2 weeks of Fukushima melting down, reactor number 2 is at 10 million times safe radiation levels. Now, we probably have not been able to get a robot or any type of gauge into any of those facilities for quite a long time to get actual readings. So who the hell knows what it's at now? I've seen some disturbing numbers just in the puddles around that place where it's, I've said this before, 100 million, bazillion, quadrillion, cotillion. At this point, this has been going on for over 3, now going on almost 4 years. It doesn't fucking matter. It's all contaminated. But so Yahoo for Vong Fong. Keep an eye out. I think the map is showing Tuesday, Wednesday. Wednesday at 8 a.m. Eastern. So, hey, it was about an hour and 18 minutes ago. We were supposed to be at 160 miles an hour, category 5. Friday by 8 a.m. Eastern, we were going to be down to 140 miles an hour. This is predicted. And then Sunday by 8 a.m. Eastern at 105 miles an hour as it comes into Japan. That would be a good thing if it cranked itself down to 100 miles an hour. I don't know when a 100-mile-an-hour typhoon was ever a good thing, but I guess in these days of oddness everywhere, they must be. Actually, I drove in some pretty dicey weather this weekend. It hasn't been crazy windy in a long time here, but I think it was Friday. We must have had 30 or 40-mile-an-hour winds, and they were all coming from the side. Like normally when you're driving, and I guess there's no rule, but normally when you're driving, like most of the time, at least for me, I mean, it's either front-on wind or back wind. And I like the back winds because they kind of like push you along the road. Oh, yeah, extra gas mileage. But on Friday, it was all coming from the side. So every 2 seconds, your car was getting like zipped out of the lane. Like everyone looked like drunk drivers. Whoa, whoa. And you had to be really careful as you were passing semis because sometimes they don't pay attention. And that whole truck will go, whoa, into the lane next to him. So I tend to make passing a semi something that I calculate the chances. All right. I am going to take a look here at some stuff because we really are going to start digging into, and I don't want to spend for everyone's calling bullshit on Ebola. Yeah, duh. We've been calling bullshit on Ebola since day one. I don't think the virus is bullshit. I don't think that you maybe getting it accidentally is bullshit because I still think you can. It's not a fake virus. But we've been digging into the economics of behind all this and all these development projects where things have been sitting in the pipeline. And I've been doing some research now for the last 5 days, and I came up with some pretty damning shit against the pharmaceutical agencies and some international moral ethic laws in regards to doing testing with DNA vaccines. And I'm going to tell you, they're still not referring to any of these as such. Even this new, let me get there. I don't remember what it's called. Brincidofovir, that new antiviral that they're testing on the dude down in Duncan down in Dallas. That's an antiviral that they can use for adenovirus and smallpox. And actually, that antiviral was in development to be used in the event of a smallpox bioterror attack, just so you know. But before we get to any of that, one of the things I did want to mention, though, we're going to look at all these DNA manipulating cures that we have now. And what I did not realize, I've been reading recently about these new synthetic lipids and nucleotides that they've been developing. And I know there was one where they were all excited because they made a motor out of a synthetic, I think it was a synthetic lipid, which biological machines are not good, guys. I mean, this is the stuff that nightmares are made out of. And the fact that they're already messing with us. And who knows? I mean, this is what I was saying. The cat is out of the bag. The symbol for today's show should be the guinea pig, because this has been going on for way, way longer than we know. I mean, look at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. You don't think that they followed those people around for the last 2 generations to see what kind of cancer cases they ended up with? Absolutely. Look at the spraying of malaria. You know, all these outbreaks, like you saw the enterovirus, right? It's like, oh, we haven't seen the enterovirus since 1968, and now all these kids have it. Well, it's because they are working on vaccines for these types of things. And because these vaccines, or whatever they are, they're immuno boosters, are using DNA changing technology, the international community has deemed it unethical to be doing studies on humans. And I guess it's some international law that's been around for a long time. But there is an agreed upon, I'm trying to remember what I it's early, so my synapses don't fire properly. Hold on. The words will come out. There's an agreed upon standard for what they do in those cases. And what they do in cases where it is too dangerous to test it on humans because of the side effects and morally apprehensible is they have a genome print of certain simians that are very close to humans and other animals that have close genes to us that they have proven when, they get results in the animal studies, they're pretty close to humans. And they will call those, for some drugs, they and the FDA and the regulatory bodies will call those studies acceptable to be able to get a drug approved. So guess what? All these drugs we're messing with right now, they're all sitting in a pipeline. They're all these drugs that are considered, I had to turn that off, that are considered morally wrong to test on humans, except, and then there's a caveat to that, in the case of an emergency. Guys, do you see the picture being painted here? All these big pharma companies have this new technology with all their genetic manipulation that's being done, with the click of a button on a computer now. And how cool is that? Beep, 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 beep. I can build whatever I want with my new, computer-generated genome cutter. But the problem is, so we got pipelines that are full. I've been hitting all these pharmaceutical companies' pages, and they list all their drug pipelines and what phase of clinical studies they're in. They're all sitting waiting for human clinical trials. So when I started digging, and then I found out about this, moral dilemma that they have, that international law bans them from doing clinical studies on humans unless we have a quote-unquote emergency. I mean, we've talked about this 1,000 times in regards to how the swine flu thing happened, how they got squalling into this country, how the declaration of emergency allowed the FDA to set precedent to fast-track that freaking vaccine. That was never approved. Squalene was never an approved adjuvant in the United States. It was allowed in Europe, but it wasn't allowed here. And Barry, declaring the state of emergency, opened the door wide for untested vaccines because, we were scared. So that's what they're doing again, guys. So I'm not saying that Ebola, God forbid. I mean, I just did international travelers here. I'm still definitely a little nervous. It was only like a week and a half ago. I feel like crap, to be honest. I don't think there's any day recently that I've woken up and said, wow, I'm glad to be alive. Most mornings I wake up and go, oh, again. I could probably sleep for a week and I wouldn't even notice it. But I think that there are going to be victims of this. I mean, that poor little boy with that enterovirus in New Jersey just died. And there's a whole bunch of kids with that enterovirus, which I just saw now is in 43 states. Did you guys see that? 43 states. And they're calling it still like the mystery virus. That scares me because, yes, go after our kids. Yes, now it's a mystery virus. Yes, it's something that you couldn't get vaccinated against. Oh, and it works some strange way on the body, and it's doing all these weird things that kind of mimic polio. I don't know. Just saying. So now we're going to have to protect our kids. Well, hey, we got something in the pipeline. It's not tested yet. This is evil. What they are doing is evil. And there is untested to the nth degree technology, like hacking your biological processes that are going on in these new vaccinations or whatever they are. Immunotherapies is what I should call them. Because they're not even vaccines in the traditional sense. They literally go in and manipulate your core body code. So, something I discovered then when digging into this new Ebola treatment, because, the secret serum, quote unquote, that they called it, that treated the first couple Ebola doctors is all gone, at least until 2015. And remember, that was all the DARPA funded GMO big tobacco RNAi vaccine stuff that was all ready to rock and roll and in the pipeline, and whoops, we don't have anymore. Makes you wonder, actually. How it was like miraculous cure? And notice how you're not hearing any more about those doctors either. Did you notice that? They were cured, they let them out of the hospital, and you never heard another freaking peep. Wouldn't that been like the best fucking reality TV show on the planet? Ebola doctor. Let's follow him around. You know what I mean? Like follow him around now in his fight against Ebola because he has this unlimited immunity, super Ebola doctor that he got the secret serum. Where the hell is that? Because in understanding how these RNAi vaccines work, that's exactly what it does. It goes in and modifies your DNA so you will never fucking get sick again for whatever they immunized you for. That was how the Blue Angel program that started all this with the universal flu vaccine. That's what it was all about. Anytime there was a new flu, you would be able to recognize, search, and destroy. It is like adjuvant 3.0. Originally, we started with aluminum. Then they went to squalene, which was some sort of like shark oil. And that caused all kinds of horrible autoimmune problems and people who got it. Ask any of the original Gulf War vets back from the early 90s who had to get that as part of the anthrax vaccine. It gave them horrible autoimmune diseases. And that's what a lot of this stuff does. And you know why? Because they're fucking with your immune system. Stuff that, biology that they don't understand. And you're the guinea pig. And now our kids are becoming the guinea pigs. And you know what? I really dug into some stuff yesterday that by the end of the night, I was just like, wow, it really cannot be this bad. They are not this nefarious. Oh, yes, they are. I have a little kicker for the end of the show that was the last thing that I saw last night. And that's when I decided to call it quits because I was like, wow. They're really like playing for the whole end game, aren't they? Yeah, they are. It's going to be over here. I don't know, not for us. 2045, I know I'll be pretty old and decrepit, so by the time their brains are 3 million times smarter than mine, I'll probably be drooling in a cup anyway. Or maybe I'll be a head in a jar that can just spew history to people. Or a hologram. Hey, look at that. Get on your Oculus Rift and come talk to Jules. All right. I don't want to get lost here. I started ranting for a while, and now I just lost my train of thought, but that's okay. So where do we start? That was just like the batter up. Well, I guess let's just continue where we were going. So I think we need some no. I don't want to derail it now. I was going to give us some comedic relief, but if I derail it, it's going to be really hard to get back. Let's look at the Shamirics. So who's Shamirics? Well, after they announced that the Ebola, and that's where I kind of got derailed. Where the hell are the Ebola doctors that they cured? I want to know how these doctors were flown to the U.S., miraculously cured, and let out within days of the hospital to forever disappear into the ether and never be seen or heard from again, and then the drug all dries up. But it was a miraculous cure. Was it really? Did they grow a third arm out of their eyeball? Is that why we don't see these Ebola doctors who got that special treatment? Because I think something happened. When you're sitting there on the cusp of like wet dreams for every biopharma sales rep on the planet, as your stock prices are going through the roof, because you know they are, to announce that you have no more vaccine seems kind of dumb. But I think I think they're playing like the shell game here. Because they're like, hey, why should one Ebola vaccine company get all the accolades? That's very true. I believe that one was that Techmira, or I don't know. Techmira is one of the ones that's working on the GMO 2.0 tobacco DARPA vaccine. I don't know if Techmira is the one who actually developed the one that those first few doctors got, but Techmira is still in the pipeline. And there are like 3 or 4 RNAi companies that are developing vaccines. And you know what sucks is that on my notebook upstairs, I have my notebook all weekend, so all my freaking research is open there, but I did post a lot of it. But wait. I discovered there was a Google map that somebody had made with all of the RNAi research that's going on in all of the pharmaceutical companies in the United States and in Europe. And I know I posted this in chat, but for any of you who weren't in chat, did you know that there is a pharmaceutical company in California, I believe they're in Southern California, that's named ISIS Pharmaceuticals. And they are exclusively an RNAi R&D company. Now, what are the chances of that? ISIS Pharmaceuticals. Search it. I think it's isisfarm.com was their website. Now, I did not see that they were working on an Ebola vaccine, but they had a huge pipeline for all kinds of other long-term like autoimmune diseases. And what really pisses me off is a lot of these diseases that they're going after. I mean, there's viruses, but there's also autoimmune. You know, the majority of the autoimmune that are out there now, I can tell you through all my own personal experience, were all brought on by their freaking Generation 1 GMO. That was going in and messing with all your proteins, your digestive proteins, your bacteria, all the things that make your body work, your enzymes. And like we've said before, who the hell knows? But nano's been around since the 90s, and we've been finding that it's been in the food at least since the mid-2000s. I found something over the weekend that shows back in like 94 or something, is when they first started sprinkling nano into things to see what would happen. This has been going on for a long time. And like I always say, we are the petri dish, but it is like so blatant in your face right now. So again, let's get back to this Ebola thing. I don't think that it's a joke where we can walk around laughing about it like you're not going to get it because some people have to get it for it to be declared an emergency. I know I don't want it to be me. Do you ever take a look at pictures? Yeah, nah, I do not want that to be me or anybody that I know. But there is a method and a means to an end. They need to launch all of these drugs that are sitting there not being allowed to go to human trial because of global ethics and create the emergency to allow that to happen. So let's get into this Shamiric. So after that secret serum that we haven't seen anything about, that we haven't seen the doctors after they were cured and set free, which again, I don't know, we saw them stage bringing them into this country. We saw them walking into the hospital. We saw them maybe walking out of the hospital, but they've disappeared. And was that all fake? It couldn't have been fake. Was it fake? I don't know. Was it or wasn't it? I mean, maybe it didn't work, and so they faked it to then open the door for human testing. So now they can really start like injecting it into millions of people. I saw actually something, and we will pop there right now before I get into this because was it fake or wasn't it? Well, here's something that was extremely interesting. From the Daily Sheeple, reprinting Vac Truth. India holds Bill Gates accountable for his vaccine crimes. Now, guys, they've been doing this for a long time. And in other countries besides the United States, they've been allowed to get away with much, much more, right? Poor countries like India. And what I couldn't believe when I was reading this, I was like, oh, Billy, you are such a sneaky bastard. He created his whole programmer community over in India back in the late 90s. They had programmer villages of these adobe huts where everyone lived and worked and had a campus. And it was cheap labor. So they have Microsoft India, and they still do over there. And there's a lot of software development that goes on over there, as well as call centers. That's why it became like a big tech haven. It was a good offshoring gamble. But the other thing that he had were millions and millions and millions and millions of people. There's a big division. There's the caste system that still resides over there. So you have millions of highly educated people that are on the upper caste, and I don't know what they call them, but they're family members. A lot of them are diplomats or well-to-dos. And then you have millions and millions and millions of poor people that live in the slums that are just throwaways. I don't think anyone really cares too much. There's overcrowding. There's, highly educated people on the one hand, and then extreme destitution on the other. If you ever saw, I think it was called Slumdog Millionaire or something like that, that was a really good representation of poor India. I had a friend in college, actually. She was a roommate of one of my really good friends for a year. And so we got to hang out with her. What's her name? Oh my God, it was like 25 years ago. Shit. Actually, my downstairs neighbors, too, when I lived in my apartment, were from India. Neelam and Darius. But what was the girl's name? Oh, shit, I don't remember. But anyway, she was really great. She was working on her PhD here, and she was a party animal. They party, but her father was a diplomat. So she was from the well-to-do part of India. But yeah, talk about Bill Gates, like hitting the bullseye on, all these educated people. And, you also have all these poor people. And so you can get all your programmers cheap and have your guinea pigs for your vaccination programs under the guise of humanitarian efforts. Well, go India, as Bill Gates faces a lawsuit for illegal testing of tribal children in India. It appears that his crimes against humanity have finally caught up with him. A recent report published in the Health Impact News has reported that the Gates Foundation has found itself facing a pending lawsuit due to an investigation that has been carried out by the Supreme Courts of India. Health Impact News states, while fraud and corruption are revealed on almost a daily basis now in the vaccine industry, yes, it is, the U.S. mainstream media continues to largely ignore such stories. Outside of the U.S., however, the vaccine empires are beginning to crumble, and English versions of the news in mainstream media outlets are available via the internet. One such country is India, where the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and their vaccine empire is under fire, including a pending lawsuit currently being investigated by the India Supreme Court. The Health Impact News article centered largely on a 4-page report that was recently published by Economic Times India. Eager to know more, this author investigated that story and discovered that the World Health Organization, the Gates Foundation, and 2 organizations funded by them, PATH, which stands for Program for Appropriate Technology in Health, and Gavi, which stands for Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunization, have found themselves under fire after a writ of petition originally submitted to the Supreme Court of India by Kalpana Mehta and Nalini Bhatnagar and Dr. Rukmini Rao in 2012 was finally heard by the courts. The petitioners submitting the petition stated, quote, BMGF, which is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, PATH, and WHO were criminally negligent trialing the vaccines on a vulnerable, uneducated, and underinformed population, school administrators, students, and their parents who were not provided informed consent or advised of the potential adverse effects or required to be monitored post-vaccination. Now, one of the things that happened when Obama allowed that swine flu vaccine in after the declaration of emergency that was loaded with squalene from Europe was that they have given the vaccine industry carte blanche. If you end up with a vaccine injury, you now have to go to I don't even know what they call it. It's kind of a quorum. You have to go in front of a panel and be adjudicated. And your lawsuit has a cap on it. So it is no longer lawsuit, whatever they think you deserve for being vaccine damaged, let's say. You have to be able to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that A, your damages were from the vaccine and nothing else, and there could be no reasonable doubt at all. And then there's a cap on it. So these, and I mean, we talked about this too in regards to the pharmaceuticals, any of the generic medicines. Hey, you don't want to pay $50,000 a pill? Well, hey, we got a generic option for you from China. And hey, even though it says that it's got what the original has in it, well, maybe. But if it doesn't work or you die or you grow a third arm, don't sue me, because guess what? There are no lawsuits allowed on generic meds. Now, what worries me about all of this is, yes, so they've been injecting, and we'll read a little bit more. They've been injecting young tribal girls in India with untested vaccines without proper informed consent because they didn't understand what they were getting. And they probably spun it, like the malaria goats in freaking Africa. I bet you they didn't even tell those people that there was malaria vaccine in the goat milk for the goat they were giving them. And Africa has been a test bed for many years. They were saying that the Ebola didn't show up until like 79. And I mean, Big Mind posted a video showing that they were doing all kinds of research back as far back as like 89 in the labs with Ebola in the United States. You better believe that was to see if they could be used as a bioweapon. And now it's like the lid is off. Freaking mad science gone mad. So all these little pop-ups, still everyone seems to forget in the memory hole too. Like right before all these outbreaks, did we or did we not have like the groundwork laid to show how absolutely pathetic the chain of command has been in keeping lockdown and control on these toxic and virulent substances? They've just willy-nilly left all over. And the CDC guy that keeps coming out, man, he doesn't seem like he's really got all of his shit together. I mean, I know when there's an emergency of some sort, you want someone who looks like they have all their faculties, who's got a plan. Though I scare people, I got to tell you, one of the things I'm good at is getting a plan together. Executing, if it's just me and I'm really tired, I try really hard, but it's always got to be whatever fire's burning brightest that I got to jump on. But if I had a crew of people, I'm good at like organizing and executing, and I want someone like me in an emergency, not someone like that, dude. I just saw this morning. Actually, wait, we're gonna spin off of India here for a second. Let me just go here because I was hitting the headlines quick, and I really couldn't. Oh, U.S. General, troops fighting Ebola will be safe. Hey, is that where all the leftover secret serum went to? Remember, in the military, just like with the first Gulf War and all the anthrax shit, they could just inject them with whatever they want, and they become a big walking experiment. We said that when they first were sending them in. I was like, oh, look, 3,000 participants in your beginning studies on human guinea pigs. I want to see, though, where did the dude... hold on. I have to go back. I thought I just saw it. Yes, here we go. Here's a CDC dude. Now tell me that this dude doesn't have a rock loose. Maybe.
U.S. health officials are considering stepping up airport screening for Ebola. New protocols could include checking for fever in all passengers arriving from abroad. In Atlanta, the head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Thomas Frieden, said today he is not yet ready to recommend anything so drastic.
No, so drastic? So drastic. Checking any international travelers coming from the infected areas. No, that's drastic measures. This dude's got a screw loose. Like, he really looks like he's on slow-mo, and like maybe I don't, what was I talking about? Like, honestly, when you watch this guy, he does not exude leadership qualities at all. All right, here, let's hear what he has to say.
Screening at airports, of course, would not have found fever in the patient in Dallas because he didn't have fever for 4 or 5 days after he arrived. But we'll look at all of the options. We're not today providing the steps that we plan to take, but I can assure you that we will be taking additional steps, and we will be making those public in the coming days once we can work out the details.
Once we figure this shit out, like how the pandemic, the quote-unquote pandemic, the epidemic, not quite a pandemic, the epidemic, worst ever in the history of the world, outbreak in Africa, started in March, people. We started following it in March. You know, some of these people that are like, oh, well, you know, this Ebola thing, it's all fake. No, it's not fake. There are people dying. There are petri dishes being formed. But follow the money, right? Isn't that what they always say? Follow the money. Now, I also had read that they are working on some sort of like rapid test kit that would probably do like a mouth swab, or, I mean, I don't know what they were planning. but I would imagine that's what it would be, some sort of like little swab. I also saw too that nurse. There's now a second patient outside of Africa, and that's that nurse in Spain that has been confirmed to have it. And did you see that they put her poor little dog, and he looks so scared, her poor little doggy into quarantine because they're afraid that the dog might have it, and I guess he's slated now to be put to sleep. Is that not suck? Couldn't they just keep the dog for 21 days and see if he gets sick? And that makes me mad. But hey, you know what? We don't have any regard for life anymore. That's what this is all about. There is no regard. Oh, look at another beheading. Ah! Oh, look, we just found out. I saw a story yesterday that the Mexican army, did you guys see this? The Mexican army has taken control of one of the Mexican police departments because they were responsible for killing and burning like 28 students and burying them in a shallow grave, working with the Mexican drug cartel. And we've lost humanity. That's what's happening here. We are losing our humanity. And this is all going to dot right to that. There was a brand new Kurzweil interview yesterday that pretty much laid it all out on the line. Wired has some new show that deals with all scary technology shit. And they interviewed Kurzweil. Kurzweil wants to be a god. He says this is a spiritual, the merging of man and machine. This is spiritual because it'll make us closer to God. Yeah. We are not. We are morally bereft. We have lost humanity. And you know what? I guess it's okay because we will no longer be biological entities when this is all over, which is what I'm working on illustrating at the moment. All of these pandemics, and then this is problem, reaction, solution, and then there's solutions for these new cures, are getting all this garbage into your body. It's doing all the beta testing and the stage 1 testing. Bill and Melinda Gates in India injecting all the poor people. The Ebola in Africa. The malaria in Africa. That's what this is all about. We are the expendable ones. We always have been. Now, Middle America also served other purposes because we kept the economic machine running. But now that they've completely gutted the United States of any and all manufacturing just about, hey, they don't need that many of us. What? We got how many? I don't even remember what the number is, but the unemployment rate, like the real number is 20-some%. And we're all sucking off of pennies. Well, hey, that makes you now a useless eater. You are no longer producing and contributing to society. Oh, what? We have all these great advances in robotics. Oh, what? The same company that employs Kurzweil as the head of director of engineering bought 8 robotics firms this year and last year. And what? Bill Gates comes out and says all of our jobs will be replaced by robots? Oh. But it gets even more evil than that. They are planning our absolute utmost extermination. And for the time being, what we are good for is we are clearing and freeing up that bottom line R&D that used to cost them millions, if not billions of dollars on the P&L sheet for public corporations. Now they are going to, because they're putting it under the guise of emergencies or the military industrial complex or, part of the war on terror. Now they can turn it around. And even you'll be opening your arms, begging them, I'm telling you, for the vaccine. That's what they want. But morally, they, because of the international community, could not. And like we have morals. I think it was more legally, but it was because of originally moral concerns of using something that hacks our biological genome. They weren't going to allow that just willy-nilly to get out and to test it on people who were unknowing. Wow, good thing they did that for us. Unlike the people in India. All right, let me just pop back to this story in India 1 second. So they're trying to hold the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, PATH, which is this program for appropriate technology in health, and the World Health Organization is criminally negligent by trialing these vaccines on people who are unaware. Now, one of the vaccines they tested was the HPV vaccine. Now, didn't we look at that back a few months ago? I dug into that and discovered that the HPV vaccine already has these patented virus-like particles in them that mimic nature. Now, remember, anything that mimics nature, they can put a patent on and make money. So they wouldn't necessarily be able to go like patent a red blood cell. But if they made a synthetic red blood cell or a red blood cell that's got, new DNA or something, hey, look at that's a new entity. We could patent that and make lots of money. Well, that's what the name of the game is owning life, owning biology, merging the synthetic with the biological, and then it becomes patentable. That is the evil. That is what is happening right now. That is the end game. And I will show you that. I just can't even believe what I found last night. It was like I wanted to just toss in the towel. I don't even know how we're going to stop them. I mean, this is far down the line, guys. This has been going on for a lot of years. And at least this nanotech biohacking, at least for the last 20, maybe even 30. I mean, we found out like back in 04, maybe. Don't quote me on the year. They had already found a couple hundred chimeras growing in a lab in the UK. Animal-human hybrids. Isle of Dr. Moreau type stuff. And remember, I was really surprised, actually, that there was any type of morals at all, or ethics, I guess they call them in business, against injecting people with these DNA vaccines or the immunotherapy. All right. So anyway, young tribal girls tested with the HPV vaccines. The Economic Times of India published the report in August of 2014. They stated that in 2009, tests have been carried out on 16,000 tribal school children in Andhra Pradesh, India, using the human papilloma virus, which is the HPV vaccine, Gardasil. According to the report written by K.P. Kumar, within a month of receiving the vaccine, many of the children fell ill, and by 2010, 5 of them had died. And remember, this is the vaccine that they are recommending and in some states even forcing on your child. And not just your daughters, but your sons. And what did the pediatrician tell me when she was questioned as to why we would be giving this shit to boys? Because it prevents anal cancer, is what she told me. And you know what? If it's using some sort of biologically hacked, synthetic, DNA virus-like nano crap that they're putting into these, it very well may prevent anal cancer and grow a third arm in the middle of your forehead and kill HPV, maybe, and have an off switch, so if you open your mouth, they could flip you off. You might just drop dead from an aneurysm. I mean, I don't know. We don't know what these people are doing. It is mad science gone, man. Nobody is watching the hen house. Why would you let them put this stuff in your kids? This is not old school immunology anymore. Back in the old days, it was like, I don't remember what they call it. It was like when I had dust allergies for many, many, many years. 8 years I got vaccinations. And what it was in the vial, they put dust in there. My brain is so brain dead. Whatever it's called. You know what I'm saying? Back in the 80s, we used to practice it. If you're allergic to something, if you're sensitive to something, if something is bothering you, then you take it. But you take it in small doses. It's like using homeostasis. Take it in small doses to get yourself used to it. A little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. I mean, you see that with things such as alcohol. You know, If you start out, we heard G. Michael talking last night about craft brews. If you started out doing a double jack, Firestone, first craft brew ever, you'd be knocked flat on your ass. That was a pretty hefty alcohol content in that brew. I don't remember. It's probably 8 or 9%. But if you started out with first time you ever had a beer and it was like Budweiser or whatever, 4.5%, and then you worked your way up to maybe a 5% brew for a little while, then a 6% brew. By the time you got to the 9% beers, you'd be like, this is easy. Same concept. You know, like smoking. If you first started smoking like 1 or 2 cigarettes, you're going to be like, ugh, these are awful. But as your body becomes acclimated to the nicotine, then it eventually gets used to it. Same concept. So old school immunotherapy worked the same way. They would introduce small amounts of a substance until your body got used to it, and then they can increase the dose. Well, they're not doing stuff like that anymore. I mean, they literally are going in and hacking our human biological processes. That's not cool. Considering they don't know what the long-term side effects of any of this shit's going to be. Now, I joke about the third arm growing out of your forehead, but it could happen. Weirder stuff's happened. I'm sure it's happened in the lab, and some horrifying, or, X-Files used to be out in the train cars out in the New Mexico desert somewhere. Mutated creatures, all dead, because they were incinerated after the testing. All right, so they were testing on all these girls. Actually, I don't even know if it says girls, just children, school children. 16,000 school children, 2009, 2010. We had a large number of the kids who got ill. 5 of them died. A further 2 children were reported to have died in Vadodara, where another estimated 14,000 tribal children were vaccinated with another brand of the HPV vaccine, and this time it was by GlaxoSmithKline. Just so you know, they keep showing up everywhere. And they just got indicted on corruption charges in China. Shockingly, the report stated that many of the consent forms used to vaccinate the girls were signed illegally, either by wardens from the hostels where the girls resided or by using thumbprints from illiterate parents. The Economic Times states the SAMA report also said that there have been cases of early onset of menstruation following the vaccine. Severe menstrual cramps among many students. The standing committee pulled the relevant state governments for the shoddy investigation into many of these deaths. It said that it was disturbed to find that all 7 of the deaths were summarily dismissed as unrelated to vaccinations without any type of in-depth investigation. And you better believe it, they're pulling that shit here too. Talk to any vaccine-damaged child's mother or father and find out how compassionate they were or how willing they were to accept that their vaccines were the ones that were responsible for what happened to their kid. They're not. They're going to fight you tooth and nail and deny it. The speculative causes were suicides. This is what they said that these 7 girls died from. Suicides, accidental drowning in a well, malaria, other viral infections, and I don't even know what this word is, subarachnoid hemorrhage without an autopsy. This information is even more shocking when you discover that the organization funding the study was no other than Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who declared the project a total success. According to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the WHO, and the International Federation of Gynecology and Obstetrics, and the Federation of Obstetric and Gynecological Societies of India, they've all recommended that vaccination is, quote, a proven and highly effective measure for cervical cancer, unquote. The project used vaccines that are licensed in India and that have been administered safely around the world tens of millions of times, preventing countless cases of cervical cancer, illness, and death. Now think about this. We were talking about this the other day. They always pull that card. The suffering of the few makes up if we protect the many. And we were watching videos back on Friday, I believe, showing how all of a sudden in the mainstream you notice it's creeping again about these anti-vaxxer parents. And maybe they're the ones responsible for this enterovirus outbreak. And maybe they're the ones we should blame if our kids get sick. Oh, no. They're ramping this up. They are definitely ramping this up. Now, there were also stories about this HPV vaccine in the United States causing some sort of like narcoleptic type syndrome where these girls would just like instantly fall asleep in the middle of doing something. And there was another published study in one of the medical journals about a girl, and we talked about this, so she was like 10 or 12, went into menopause. I mean, are you kidding me? Virus-like particles, my ass. All right, I don't want to spend the whole show on this. I will drop this in the chat, though. I thought this was freaking great. If they could start going after and prosecuting the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for some of this bullshit. You know, they're trying to push all this on all of us. And this Ebola thing, this is what my whole thing was. It's to make us into guinea pigs, to make us into a petri dish, and to make it ethical. Because a few of us dying is going to be okay if it's for the benefit of the many. Remember, that's the mantra. And, by the way, if it makes us millions of dollars on the backside for all those who are invested. So now let's dig into. So if anyone can dig me up, any information or any reality TV show now that's coming, that's following around these miraculously cured Ebola doctors with this secret serum that no longer exists, I'd love to see it. Where the hell are they? I'd love to see how they're perfectly fine. I'd love to see some evidence of their blood tests to show that they were actually infected. I mean, it was staged very well. It was staged enough for dumb people who don't look below the surface or behind the curtain. That's the name of my Facebook, one of my Facebook pages. It was staged well enough for people to go, oh, look, their new vaccines work. Wow. And to like feel comfortable that they got this under control. And when it comes time for you to get in line and to get your vaccine, you're not going to question it. Because, hey, those doctors were cured, right? Right. That's exactly what that was about. But, wait. So now we get this Dallas guy. He shows up. I don't know if he was part of the plan or not. Maybe not, because, hey, he's not getting one of the secret serum vaccines. But I see yesterday he is getting something else, and this is called Brincidofovir. Something like that. I was like, what's Brincidofovir? And who owns it? I started digging into this. All right. So it's owned by a company named Chimerix. I was like, Chimerix? Come on. That cannot be the real name of this pharmaceutical company. Oh, yes, it is. It's sparkly and I can almost see through it. Chimerix. It's a chimera. It isn't quite what it seems. Oh, what? Animal, human hybrid. Human machine hybrid. Everything about that name is just wrong. But hey, whatever. They picked these names very carefully, so I'm sure there was a reason. All right, so Chimerix is the one that's putting out this vaccine. So, couple things we find out about Chimerix. Well, Chimerix was having some financial trouble until they got some government funding. And they sold off a part of their company. I think Merck bought a part of it. And then they spun off some shares to launch an IPO earlier this year. But they also had gotten funding from the Department of Defense to start developing some of these antivirals. And I think they have two big ones. This one that they're using, there's a code for it. I think it was like CHX001. That's this Brindicafore that they're using right now that they're testing. CMX001. That's what it's called. That was partially funded by federal funds. And they were working on getting this ready to battle smallpox in the event of a bioterror attack. So how interesting is that? And then they decide they're going to go public just as this Ebola thing was spinning up. All right. Chimerix. I'm going to read this. This is March 12th, 2013. So a year before the Ebola outbreak in Africa. Chimerix, with no approved products, relies on potential with IPO. The Durham Drug Development Company, and by the way, how interesting that they are in Research Triangle Park, North Carolina, which is where all the GMO companies move to, which is where all the bee research is being done, which is where all the GMO tobacco first started, which is where Monsanto is working on their GMO 2.0 RNAi technology. Guys, this is just all these guys are connected. It's not fantasy anymore. This is all absolutely for real, and they are all collaborating. If there ever was a conspiracy by definition, it is right now, and it's not us. Durham Drug Development Company, Chimerix, is betting that promising test results in a potentially lucrative deal with pharmaceutical giant Merck will be a winning formula on Wall Street. Wow, doesn't that first sentence tell it all? On Friday, Chimerix, which has spent $123 million on research and development, but doesn't yet have a product on the market, plans to raise as much as $85 million through an initial public offering of stock. Now, again, look at $123 million on research and development. Well, now that it's been released and they're going to start using it in experimental capacity, remember what I told you, all the bottom line budgets get better when the R&D line goes away, because we are the guinea pigs and we're for free, especially in emergency. It's based on hopes and expectations, says John Fitzgibbon Jr., who tracks new stock offerings for IPO Scoop. What you have to offer is what is in your pipeline. Being bereft of product didn't stop Chimerix from lining up a blue chip team of investment banks to manage the offering led by Morgan Stanley and Cohen and Company. Now, did you hear that? This is a year ago, a year before the Ebola outbreak. They are bereft of product, yet they're going to raise some money by creating an IPO, and they got a blue chip team of investment banks involved, okay? It's not uncommon for companies to seek to go public, to abandon their plans in the face of investor indifference. But Fitzgibbon said that drug companies like Chimerix that are all about the potential can succeed in going public, although they typically end up cutting the share price they've targeted in order to do so. Now, Chimerix stock, I'm sure, has gone fucking viral since they decided they were going to use their CMX001 Vindicafore, or whatever the hell it's called, to treat Ebola. Chimerix hasn't yet targeted a share price. In fact, its filing doesn't even disclose how big of an ownership stake the company intends to sell to raise up to $85 million, which would reveal what Chimerix financial advisors believe the company is worth. By the way, I found the SEC's filing when they filed to go public, so we're going to look at that too. Chimerix is the second Triangle company, Triangle meaning in Research Triangle Park, North Carolina, to unveil plans to go public since the first of the year. Now remember, all of this starts bringing together The DOD, Big Pharma, Big Tobacco, and Mad Science Gone Mad, all under one roof. Chimerix declined to comment on its plans, which is typical for companies seeking to go public because the security regulations limit their public pronouncements. Incorporated in 2000. So we're talking, this is 2014. They were incorporated in 2000. They had no products in the pipeline. They had nothing to go to market. How have they been around since 2000 with 46 employees? That totally made my eyebrow go up. I was like, must be nice to work for them with no income. Incorporated in 2000, Chimerix has 46 employees to date. It has been sustained mostly by government grants and $101 million raised from private investors, though they never say who they are. Well, except for this one, including Durham-based Pappas Ventures. Pappas currently owns a 6.9% stake in the business, although that stake would be diminished by an IPO. I didn't look into Pappas. Anyone wants to look into it, it's Pappas. They're out of Raleigh, Durham. Pappas Ventures. Might be interested to see who's involved in that. Chimerix's current pipeline includes the CMX-001, which is an experimental treatment for life-threatening viral infections in patients whose immune systems have been compromised by cancer or drugs. How interesting is that? Now, this is the drug, this Bendicfin or whatever it's called. This is the drug they're giving the Dallas guy right now. Last summer, so this article is from 2013, so last summer must have been 2012. Last summer, company officials said that if all goes well, Chimerix should be ready to seek regulatory approval for CMX-001 by 2015. Aren't they right on track? Look at that. We've actually started human trials in October of 2014. Wow. The company also has received federal government funding to develop a drug as a treatment for smallpox that could be used in the event of a bioterrorist attack. Hey, isn't that whole DARPA-funded Homeland Security joint venture for injections that we read about yesterday? Yeah, I think it is. Also in the works, but not as advanced in the development process, is an experimental HIV treatment, CMX-157. Last summer, Merck licensed the rights to CMX-157 for $17.5 million upfront payment, plus milestone payments that could reach $151 million. Merck is responsible for developing and marketing the drug and would also pay royalties on the sales if CMX-157 makes it to market. A big if in the high-risk, high-reward world of drug development. Chimerix's plans. Chimerix plans to use the money raised from an IPO for research and development and general operating expenses with about $45 million earmarked for CMX-001's phase 3 trials. Hey! So guess what? If they declare an emergency and their drug gets out there and they get to use it in an emergency on humans, that'll save them $45 million of money that they raised in their IPO to use for other things. I read, too, the dude that runs this company, the CEO, who, by the way, was a former CEO of GlaxoSmithKline, is making like $400 and some odd thousand a year. Wow, that's a lot of money for a CEO of a company who had nothing in the fucking pipeline as of 2013 to market, isn't it? The company estimates that the net proceeds from the offering after deducting underwriting fees and expenses combined with the existing hordes of cash will enable it to fund operations at least through mid-2015. Yeah, that makes you feel good to be taking a drug from a company that's like always saying that they're ready to go bankrupt or bust. Chimerix had $29.8 million in cash and investments as of December 31st of 2013. Or actually 2012. This is from March of 2013. It also had $15 million in debt, which was money it borrowed from a Silicon Valley bank, and Midcap Financial of Bethesda, Maryland. What else do we know is in Bethesda, Maryland? Oh, lots and lots and lots of government agencies, including the NSA, including Johns Hopkins University, and their whole brain research project, their database on children's brains. We got lots of naval bases there. I believe there's probably some big military hospitals there. So Midcap Financial of Bethesda, Maryland. Anyone want to look that one up? I bet we could track some dotted lines to the feds with that. As is typical of development stage companies, Chimerix has consistently lost money. It posted a loss of $35.2 million in 2011, but narrowed its loss to $8.8 million last year, thanks in large part to the upfront payment it received from Merck. Now remember, this company's been in business since 2000, with nothing in the pipeline as of 2013, and lost money every single freaking year. About what? Chimerix is led by Keith Mach, who joined the company as Chief Operating Officer in June of 2009 and was named President and CEO in the following March of 2010. Mach's compensation package totaled $797,349 last year, including a salary of $427,450 and stock options valued at $283,091. Now, is there not something stinky in the pit here? Am I just being dumb when I'm reading this story going, what the F? And this is the company that's going to bring us now our Ebola cure? There's something stinking high heaven in this story. The company's new chairman, Ernest Mario, is well known in the Triangle, meaning Research Triangle Park. Mario, who joined Chimerix's board last month, was this. Oh, so he's the chairman of the board. Was the CEO for what is now GlaxoSmithKline from 1989 to 1993, and before that headed the company's U.S. operations out of Research Triangle Park. Among other things, Chimerix cautions that, quote, our ability to generate future revenues from product sales is uncertain and depends upon our ability to successfully develop, obtain regulatory approval for, and commercialize our product candidates, unquote. If Chimerix succeeds in going public, it expects to trade on the NASDAQ under the symbol CMRX. Let's take a look. Yesterday, before it was still closed after they had announced using their product, but they were like at $33 a share. Let's see what they're at. Oh, 35 something. They're up 2.36. If I looked at their history, let's go 5-year max. A lot of these pharmaceutical companies, like years ago, you could get for like $5 a piece. Oh, yeah, there we go. So we probably 5 years ago, we started at $18. And actually, that wasn't 5 years ago. That was when they went public. April 12th, 2013, they went public at $18. And they are now at $35.59. So they've almost doubled their share price. That would be $36. So, hey, not a bad investment, especially if you were chairman of the board or if you were CEO and you held millions of option shares as part of your compensation. That would be great. So, all right, we've outlined now how there is something definitely stinky in the pit. Well, I dug a little bit deeper because when I start seeing stuff like that, I start to get mad. That's one of those shit that pisses me off things. Red buttons. So, all right, let's drop you that story that I just read. So now we're going to look at their SEC offering, or no, maybe even before we get there. Yeah, we will. Let's look at their SEC offering. This is their Form 10K that they had to file with the New York Stock Exchange before they went public. Because I was reading about this. So it's an antiviral. This is the same type of stuff that's used to treat herpes simplex, which would be cold sores. This thing called andiovirus, which I'm not really sure what that is. HIV, like all these viral diseases or viruses, if you want to call them that, which can't be treated with antibiotics, right? Because bacterial infections can be treated with antibiotics, but viral infections cannot. So they are special. All right. So I'm reading this SEC filing, and there's this section here, section number 3, that where they actually have to now kind of go into their business. And anything that I was reading in their public statements never really gave me any detail on their technology. And of course, trade secrets. Ancient Chinese secret, huh? Yes. They will not give away because remember, it's all patented. It's where they make their money. Well, in the SEC filing, though, you do have to kind of drop your pants. So let's read, and it's in really small print. Item 1, business, Chimerix overview. Chimerix is a biopharmaceutical company dedicated to discovering, developing, and commercializing novel, oral, like as in through the mouth, antivirals to address unmet medical needs. We were founded in 2000 based on the promise of our proprietary. Anytime you see the word proprietary, that means that there is money to be made. This is something that they have made that no one else has. They've taken something and they have trademarked it, patented it, or whatever. It's their technology. Based on the promise of our proprietary lipid technology. Lipids are fats, people. Remember, it's a lipid technology. That started to raise the hairs on the back of my neck. On the promise of our proprietary lipid technology to unlock the potential of some of the most broad-spectrum antivirals by enhancing their antiviral activity and safety profiles in convenient, orally administered dosing regimens. Now, you got to love this because, this is all like a marketing ploy. Because remember, even though they're putting this out to the SEC, this is probably one of their mission or vision statements that they're putting in here right now because that's kind of how that works. We currently have 2 nucleotide compounds. Again, my hackles raised. A nucleotide compound? I was like, wait a minute. Nucleotides are in DNA. Nucleotides are the building blocks of DNA and RNA. I thought this was an antiviral. I didn't know this was messing with DNA. Uh-oh, let's read a little bit more. We currently have 2 nucleotide compounds in clinical development that utilize our proprietary lipid technology. Our lead compound, brincidifovir, which is CMX001, that's the one we read about, is in phase 3 clinical development. Our second compound, CMX157, was licensed to Merck, Sharp, and Domi Corporation. That's actually the one that we read about. That's going to be for AIDS. After it completed its phase 1 study. In addition, we have an active discovery program leveraging our lipid technology and the Chimerix chemical library, both focusing on viral targets of areas that have high unmet medical needs. All right, so that was their spin. So now let's read their take here on brincidifovir. This is the CMX-001. This is their phase 3 suppress trial, they're calling it. CMX-001 is an investigational oral nucleotide analog that has been shown broad-spectrum antiviral activity against all 5 families of... Now, guys, I've never heard it referred to this before. If SLC mics out there, this might be something really worthy of research. Against all 5 families of, get this, DNA viruses that affect humans. Did anybody know that Ebola, that herpes simplex, that angiovirus, that HIV were DNA viruses? It's the first time I've ever heard that. A DNA virus. What? Seemed very strange to me. I don't know, maybe I'm way off base, but I pay a lot of attention. I've never heard it called a DNA virus. Not in any of the Ebola stuff either. Have we heard it called a DNA virus, have we? We initiated the phase 3 suppress trial of CMX-001 in the third quarter of 2013. What? They initiated the trial in Q3 of 2013, and the never-before unprecedented outbreak of Ebola in Africa happened at the end of Q1 of 2014? Wow, how damn convenient is that? The trial is designated to demonstrate the safety and efficiency of CMX-001 in the prevention of cytomegalovirus, which is the CMV infection, through the first 24 weeks following a hematopoietic cell transplant, which is a liver, I think that's a liver transplant, and if successful, will serve as the basis for accelerated approval for CMX-001. So I think it stops because there's a whole bunch of things that this is like the slice 'em, dice 'em. It's a floor wax. No, it's a dessert topping. It can be used on so many different things, they say, which I couldn't believe that then they decided they were pulling it out to fight Ebola. Suppress is enrolling 450 HCT recipients who are at high risk of CMV infection in the post-transplant period based on antibody evidence of a prior infection with CMV. Because there is no approved CMV prevention available for these patients, the control or placebo arm of the study is intensive monitoring for evidence of CMV, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so this is, they were trying for, at the end of 2013, for this anti-rejection. They were using it as an anti-rejection drug for liver transplants from people who had this one virus. Brincidofovir has shown activity both in vitro and in vivo, so that's within the body and in the petri dish, against all 5 families of DNA viruses that cause diseases in humans. I've never heard them called DNA viruses. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I never looked into it enough, but I would really be interested in somebody looking up what that is. And here, actually, they list some of these. These HCT, which are people who get hematopoietic cell transplants for liver, are also at increased risk for other DNA viral infections, including Epstein-Barr virus. Now, I never knew that was a DNA viral infection. I remember a bunch of people got Epstein-Barr when I was in college, and they were like, wow, we don't really know what this is. And they were like, it's so rare, and like 10 people in one research facility at the University of Buffalo all got it. And they were thinking that maybe it was airborne and that something that they'd been working on gave it all to them, but it was very catastrophic. Also, adenovirus, ADENO virus, BK virus, which I don't know what that is, and key secondary endpoints that suppress includes clinical events associated with viruses such as encephalitis, respiratory infections, graft failure, and measures of kidney function. During the first year following their testing, they actually had a non-relapse mortality not related to the recurrence of underlying malignancy of approximately 20% of the people who tried it. Blah, 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 blah. All right. So they are planning then their new suppressed trials in mid-2015. The suppressed study was designed, and the patient population mirrors that of their phase 2, and it goes into more and more and more. So I guess what I'm trying to get here is, what the hell is a DNA virus? Though nowhere in here do they talk about Ebola, if you notice. They were already starting human trials, and they were using it for all of these other things. HIV, smallpox was the one that was on the list. If you look at, and actually I could probably copy this image URL that's embedded right in this document and drop it into chat. There you go. Take a look. There's their pipeline that was put in their SEC filing for when they went public at the beginning of 2014, which was this year. It was for smallpox, and then prevention of CMV, which is rejection of some sort of liver transplant thing, and other viruses. So now all of a sudden, though, we're using it to try to cure Ebola. Which, hey, you know, they're public, their stock price has gone way up, and everybody's doing great. I'm going to drop this SEC filing because I see that I'm down in my last 20 minutes, and I got a hell of a lot more that we got to go through. All right. So here's then some bad press that came out March 10th of 2014. And this, remember, is right about when Ebola started to percolate in Africa. So I find a story now that they've gone public and they got these drugs about this poor little dying kid. This poor little dying kid in an intensive care unit in Memphis. A virus ravages the body of a 7-year-old who is in heart and kidney failure. He vomits blood several times an hour as his family gathers in vigil. In a cabinet in Durham, North Carolina, there's a drug that could likely help Josh Hardy, but the drug company will not give it to him. They are adamant that spending the time to help Josh and others like him will slow down their efforts to get this drug on the market. Helping Josh, they say, means hurting others. And when asked how he will feel if Josh dies, because he's in critical condition, so sadly that might happen, the president of the company that makes this drug does not hesitate to answer. It makes him feel horrible, says Kenneth Mock, the one who makes $700,000 and some odd a year, to being the CEO of Chimerix. He would feel horrible and heartbroken, but still, he said, there's no way that he's going to change his mind. There is no way he is giving Josh this drug. We are bagging them, it says. It's called compassionate use, but sometimes it feels anything but compassionate. Here's the way it works. According to the Food and Drug Administration, if someone has a seriously or immediately life-threatening disease and has tried and failed at other available treatments, they can ask a drug company for an experimental drug, one that they are still studying and it has not been approved by the FDA. Companies often say yes, and the FDA approved 974 compassionate use arrangements in fiscal year 2013. Yeah, this is, in lieu of R&D. This allows them to get human trials. This kid must have been too sick and he was going to die anyway. So why would a brand new company who just went public want to give this kid their medication if the kid's going to kick the bucket? They wouldn't. Because it'll make them look bad. Bad press. But pharmaceutical companies often do say no, as well as they did to Josh Hardy. Our son will die without this drug, said Todd Hardy, Josh's father. We are begging them to give it to us. Now, like many families, the Hardys have turned to the media, Facebook, and Change.org to pressure the drug company to change its mind. Everyone is watching, one tweeter warned the company. Other tweeters have tweeted out the email address of the company's board members, and Chimerix executives say they have received physical threats. Mock, the company's president, has revealed that has read these tweets and said he's heartbroken, but the issue is much more complex and unsuitable for a 144-character debate. At its very simplest is this: Chimerix is going full speed ahead to get the drug onto the market, hopefully by the end of 2016. And if they spend time and money on compassionate use cases, it would greatly hinder their effort to get the drug pindacinifor on the market and available to anyone. The company would also have to dish out $50,000 per compassionate use patient, since insurance usually doesn't pay for the experimental drug. So, hey, guess what? $50,000 a treatment, and this is the shit they're giving the guy in Dallas. I was just reading something yesterday that, yeah, all these people that are getting treated aren't covered by insurance, so who do you think is footing the bill? Hey, the taxpayer. You're treating all these Ebola patients that they're bringing here. It's on the taxpayer dime. They open the back door, and somehow, again, they're managing to get all the fixtures. Check that out. And this company had all kinds of federal grants and funds. They were keeping it afloat since 2000 with their 46 employees and their CEO making over $700,000 a year between salary and stock options. And perhaps even more important than the money, it would divert his manpower in this 50-person company, since they would have to handle the request and then get the patient's records and then follow up on them. Oh, God, as required by the FDA. Hey, you had something in the pipeline that you're trying to get off the ground. Wouldn't you want a case? So all I'm thinking is that they thought this kid was probably going to die, and so they didn't want the bad press. From 2009 to 2012, the company did give out the drug under other compassionate use cases to 451 patients, Mock said. But at least at that time, the information gleaned from those 451 compassionate use patients was helpful to the Chimerix study and helped move the science along, see? But currently, doctors don't really learn very much, if anything, from compassionate use patients, so the patients don't help get the drug to market. So fuck you, little Josh Hardy. You're going to die. I'm not going to learn anything from you. And even though I have a drug that might help you, screw off, little kid. Because you know what? Money's more important. Josh was diagnosed with a rare form of kidney cancer at 9 months old. Over the years, the cancer turned up in his thymus as long as bone marrow. And each time Josh beat it, but at a bone marrow transplant, it left Josh without much of an immune system. And in February, doctors diagnosed him with virus that spread throughout his body. And then they gave him an antiviral drug, an intravenous form of brindensinofovir, the same stuff, by the way, and it ravaged his kidneys. Now, I didn't read it, and I've already closed it, but somewhere in that SEC filing, Chimerix said that there were no adverse side effects against the kidney and the liver. They didn't mention that this little Josh had had the drug once before in an intravenous format. And remember, they were saying oral in that SEC filing. That's why. Because apparently the intravenous form kills the kidneys. His doctors at St. Jude Hospital said not to give up hope, since they'd been part of the brindensinofovir studies. They'd seen how in sometimes just a week or two, the oral form of the drug could get rid of the NDO virus without damaging the kidneys. All they had to do was to ask the company that makes it, Chimerix, to give them some of the drug. St. Jude's doctors called Chimerix executive Dr. Marion Morrison and asked for permission. She said no. On March 5th, the doctors asked again. 2 days later, they got an answer by email from another executive, Dr. Hervé Momonja-Marin, who said the company was not, quote, in a position to provide this for him or other subjects in similar circumstances due to limited inventory. Mock wants you to know that he has children of his own. And if he had a child with an aggressive Andio virus like Josh, he'd be doing the same thing. I just can't even get over this. So we cannot ask the company to turn into a philanthropy or their investors will back out, he said. So it's not just the $50,000 per patient that might make investors squeamish, but compassionate cases can make a drug look bad. By definition, compassionate use patients are extremely sick and they might not do well on the drug, and companies have to report that poor outcome to the FDA in its application to market it. So, guys, Shamirix, it's going to save the day, who had all this federal funding, making all these billions of dollars, the hundreds of thousands of dollars for their CEO, who has no product. And the CEO says no to some poor little kid who's dying, who went into kidney failure because they used your intravenous form of the drug. Wow. Shamirix is going to save the day. Notice how none of this information made it to the mainstream when they were talking about giving this new drug that they're hoping is going to help the Dallas Ebola patient. All I had to do was pull one little thread in the sweater and it all unraveled. So we found out that this is some sort of proprietary lipid technology for some sort of DNA viruses that cost $50,000 a dose that, the company's being funded by public and defense funds, working on this product in particular for a smallpox bioterror outbreak for the feds, no less. And now, when they're giving it out in some compassionate care cases, guess what? $50,000 a dose. It gets paid for by the taxpayer. Damn! I smell stinky. Trying to see if there's anything else here. I think I've done enough on Shamirix because we are running out of time. We're at less than 10 minutes, and I really, really, really want to get to the Kurzweil interview. Actually, maybe we'll dig more into this tomorrow because I haven't been on the air in a few days, and there is a lot of stuff that is going on with the hijacking of the human body. And barcoding tools for stem cells. Did you see that? UCY.tv /BTFC for before the first cup below chat is where all these stories are that I am going to look at. Actually, I did have for that CMX001 this barcoding tool for stem cells. Maybe we'll look at this tomorrow. But there's a new technology that tracks the origin of blood cells to challenge their scientific dogma. They're going to barcode stem cells, people. Remember, it's all about the money and how we can profit in owning all of life. I have two things, actually. I want to play this Ray Kurzweil interview, and then I want to read to you the two headlines, the very last things that I caught last night before I called it a night and said, oh, my God, we're doomed. So, all right, this is Ray Kurzweil and Steve Aoki talk technology in the future as well as humanity on Wired's new show. And Wired magazine, I mean, they have some good technology stuff, but it's all scary shit and it's a lot of DARPA shit. They have a new show, though, called Neon Future Sessions. This is only a couple minutes interview. It's 4 minutes and 32 seconds, so we will have plenty of time. There's a 14-minute ad that has to, 14 might as well be 14 minutes, 14-second ad that runs, so give me just a second. Anyone who's listened to the show in the past and has heard me talk about DARPA and hijacking the human genome and mad science gone mad and all this shit is just so crazy. Well, here it goes, guys, because they pretty much outline this. Ray Kurzweil, the director of engineering for Google, who is working on the longevity project as well as merging man with machine, right out of the devil's mouth. Here we go.
Neon Future Sessions. We are diving into the future. Artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, singularity, immortality, androids, unraveling the mystery of the brain. Okay. I'm excited to see where technology and humanity are going to be converging. I've talked to scientists, philosophers, writers. Those questions are exciting for me to think about. The future is intriguing. It's like a snake shedding its skin. I could blame one person that opened the doorway into this idea of a utopian neon future, and that's Ray Kurzweil.
Well, a futurist tries to predict the future, and I have a particular methodology which really does work. I made predictions based on that in 1981, and now we're in 2014, and we're right on the money as to where that trend should be.
He talks about singularity. Humanity and technology will come together to a point where we will have no idea what's going to happen because it's going to be so explosive.
My main thesis is that information technology, not everything, but information technology progresses exponentially, basically doubles in power every year. And that's not intuitive because our intuition is that progress is linear. And to demonstrate the power of that, if I take 30 steps linearly, that's our intuition, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I get to 30. If I take 30 steps exponentially, 1, 2, 4, I get to 1 billion. Your smartphone is several billion times more powerful per dollar than the computer I used when I was a student at MIT. It's also shrinking in size. My smartphone is 100,000 times smaller than that computer. It'll be the size of a blood cell in 25 years.
Makes sense, doesn't it? You look around you and think back when you had to pull your antenna from your phone to answer that call from your mom. Earphones are going to be embedded inside your ears.
It comes in steps, so you already have technologies like Oculus Rift. That gives you a pretty realistic full immersion virtual reality experience. Go to the 2030s, it'll actually be inside the nervous system. You'll have computers that feed your brain directly from your nervous system. In fact, we'll send intelligent machines through our body, augmenting our immune system, basically resisting all disease.
That's mind-blowing.
So we will, in the 2030s, be a hybrid of our biological thinking with our biological brain and non-biological thinking. But the non-biological part is subject to my law of accelerating returns, meaning it will double in power every year. Our biological thinking is fixed. Gone 5, and the non-biological part of our intelligence will be 1 billion times more powerful than the biological part. And that's such a profound change that we borrow this metaphor from physics and call it a singularity, meaning we can't fully understand all the consequences. You can imagine easily a lot of negative scenarios, and you only have to look at sort of all the movies, which are dystopian, where the computers and robots have it in for us. I have a somewhat different perspective in that I don't think it's going to be us versus them, because I think we're going to merge with these technologies and we're going to become enhanced with these technologies, and that's why we create these tools, is to make ourselves greater. We're the only species that seeks to change ourselves. We basically create these tools to extend our own reach. 1,000 years ago, I couldn't reach that fruit, that higher branch, so I fashioned a tool to extend my physical reach.
We are going ethereal, and I am a spiritual person. So when Ray talks about evolution as a spiritual process, it's intriguing.
People use the word God, which I think is a metaphor that means unlimited in intelligence, in love, in creativity, beauty. And so what happens in evolution? Well, we see that entities get more intelligent, more creative, more beautiful, becoming more godlike. So evolution is a spiritual process.
Thank you guys for watching, and please be sure to subscribe.
Honestly, guys. Oh, ridiculous. I don't even know what to say to this. Like, I was horrified. I'm going to drop this into chat. This video is linked underneath the chat room, but after the show, check that video out because the humanity as we know it, they're doing this, okay? They're augmenting us. They are putting this shit into our bodies. They call it an evolution to be more godlike. No, biological life is going to die. Do you get it? It's already happening. And all the stuff that they're doing to the planet is some sort of, I mean, they don't care if there isn't any clean water or there isn't a food chain, because their plan is to make us non-biological at the end. That isn't going to require any of these things. And now I'm running like completely out of time, but this is exactly what I've been talking about. Here, we'll look at these tomorrow, but here's a brand new story out of phys.org. No need for water. Enzymes are doing it for themselves. So enzymes, which your body uses in all of its biological processes, will no longer need water. So, hey, good thing there's a drought because it won't matter anymore. And here's the scariest thing ever. I catch 2 stories yesterday, and the first one was new crystal steals oxygen from air. Danish scientists have invented a revolutionary crystalline material that can absorb and store oxygen in high concentrations. A bucket of such material can suck the oxygen out of a room. I was like, oh, that doesn't sound like a good idea. So don't I see a Pigmine video last night? U.S. scientists discover a way to make oxygen without plants. Guys, it's going to become patented proprietary technology.
A new way has been discovered to make oxygen without plants. Researchers from the University of California and Davis have found a way of converting carbon dioxide into oxygen. The new research could help experts understand the Earth's early atmosphere and find...
Yeah, help us understand the Earth's early atmosphere and steal all the oxygen and make you pay for it as they use their crystals to suck it all out of the atmosphere. All right, guys, we are out of time. It is Wednesday night, so make sure you stick around. We got Hale Anthony up next, Mr. John Stokes, Mr. Jack Flood. Josh, Anti-Tyranny News is live tonight at 6 p.m. Continual Condition with the boys from New York City. Jonathan and Steven is live in their new slot at 8 p.m. Truth or Talk with April and Burstein, their replay at 9. And then Nick and DB